Welcome to episode 92 of Pros. This week, send a voicemail to another reality and experience the same memory twice over, thanks to the joys of time travel. Please follow the show on social media under @ProsPodcast. If you are enjoying the show, please click that 5-star button on Apple Podcasts for Pros. Reviews really help out a lot. For easiest access to the show, subscribe using Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or whatever podcast app is your favorite. Lastly, but oh man, not leastly, go to patreon.com/prospodcast and consider supporting the show there. You'll get some pretty cool benefits if you do. Thanks for listening. Let's get to the tales, shall we? This week, we have Across the Universe and Play It Again. Enjoy. Across the Universe by Jared I. McGee.
Hello, no one is available to take your call. Please leave a message after the tone.
Hey Laurel, I hope you sit back and just kind of relax for a minute, because this one's going to be a long one. I'm so sorry. I know how much you hate voicemails, but this might be my last chance to speak with you. So, you know how we keep missing each other and finding each other at all the strangest times as we go here, there, and everywhere throughout the week? I mean, both of us have crazy hours with our jobs, right? Well, here's the thing. I spoke with Dr. Jensen, a family friend of ours. He's actually here in the city. I think he went to like Vanderbilt and went on to do something else. Anyway, Jensen is a physicist, a pretty well-known one. He's got some renown for some pretty out there theories that are starting to get a little more prominence, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So anyway, Dr. Jensen, I talked to him about how you just kind of show up and then don't, and how I kind of show up then don't for you, and how somehow we can sometimes get texts and voicemails through. Well, after that last disappearing act that you did, where you came through and asked me to go to dinner and told me where to meet and what time, and then you never showed, and then the next day you had no idea what I was talking about, and I thought I was crazy, and then it happened again that one Wednesday. Well, Jensen says that this isn't all that crazy. Jensen is telling me that supposedly maybe you and I, and please, I understand how crazy this sounds, but stick with me. He says that you and I might exist in different realities. Now, not different times. The first thing I thought was like Back to the Future, Marty McFly, Doc Brown, the whole thing. No, that's not what he's talking about. He's talking about different realities. About the folds of space and the fabric of time, and how simultaneous realities can happen and overlap in some places. And how at those overlapping places we can meet people, we can do things, we can see things, if but for a moment. And this is where things like ghosts and spectral analysis and demons and all this stuff from all of history, but also stuff like deja vu, something as mundane as that. That's where it comes from. Can you believe that, Laurel? That sounds crazy, but this guy, he gets paid a lot of money, and I'm talking a lot of money, to do what he does, to say this stuff, and other physicists believe him. They're proving it with math, darling. Anyway, I'm actually driving back into the city, so again, sorry for the voicemail. But here's the deal. We've been glitching out for each other at a much faster rate than we used to. And Jensen said that glitching out maybe really is the right term for it. The places where we overlap are becoming more infrequent, and they touch for less time. Hence, both of us standing each other up all the time for these dates. You going to the bathroom in that movie the other day and never coming back, and me thinking you were pissed off. Me saying, yeah, sure, I'll go do putt-putt with you and your girlfriends, and then never showing and looking like a dick. It's not us, Laurel. It might actually be the world of physics, the rules of the universe, both set against us, but also making it where we got to meet each other in the first place. So Dr. Jensen says that with this spottier coverage of sorts, we won't be seeing each other much longer. And I just wanted to let you know, in case I don't physically get to see you, that I love you. Now, I know you know that, but, with Christmas coming up and everything, and you saying now that you're kind of new to the city, and I'm kind of new to the city, and we both want to do the whole Rockefeller Center ice skating thing. Well, Laurel, I had every intention in the world of asking you to marry me here in about 2 months. Now, I know that's sudden, but, you're the one who jokes about it. You're the one asking about kids' names. It works, right? I'm not crazy. Anyway, that's why I'm doing this lame voicemail thing. Long ago, we figured out that whatever the hell's happening, for some reason, our phones, they seem to get the message better than we do. Whatever's wrong with our brains or our realities just doesn't jive as well as technology, I guess. Anyway, as I'm flying down 95 South, trying to come back to you after this stupid work thing, all I can hear is Jensen the other day telling me, kid, you're not going to have her for very long. Kid, make the best of every single day with this girl if you really love her. So, Laurel T&E Hamilton, wherever you are, whenever you are, however you are, if you happen to get this, I really would love to spend the rest of my life with you. And there'd be nothing that would make me happier than to be your husband. But even as I leave this, I know full well that with these glitches, I don't think we'll see each other again. So I'm trying my best, my dear, dear Laurel, not to lose it, not to speed, because that doesn't work apparently, laws of physics and all that jazz, but, just in general to come back to you. And if you're there, wonderful. And I'm so sorry for spoiling the whole proposal thing. But in a much more likely event that you're not here, just know that there's a rough and tumble guy who's way beneath you and for whom you are way out of his league, that worships the ground you walk on, counts you as his best friend, and is so happy that the universe gave us a moment together. It's been phenomenal, Laurel. And I hope this is all in vain and you are going to be pissed at me for me ruining this whole proposal mess I had going on, but again, I just don't think that's so. So, I'm going to keep speeding along with the rest of these schmucks, 85 down 95, as they say. I'm going to hope that when I roll into the apartment, you'll be there, as you always are on Saturday nights, or at least you always were, for that little brief bit of time when we had a much greater, much less infrequent overlap. If you meet me back where you're from, do me a favor and go talk to me. I mean it. Don't just sit around and get bummed out. As for me, I'm going to be a hypocrite. I don't know, even if there is another Laurel here, if that would work for me. She might look like you, but I'll always know it's not you. Dr. Jensen said it's actually much more common for there not to be a me and not to be a you. At least that's what the math and the theories say right now, so... Anyway, at this point I'm blathering. Google Maps tells me I've still got an hour into the city. I'll head over the bridge, get over there into Brooklyn, park the car, and God, I hope I see you. Thanks for everything, Laurel. I'm so sorry for this long voicemail. I've probably taken up all your storage again, huh? At least the other times I was just being cheesy and lovey-dovey, right? No talk of parallel overlapping universes or any of that stupid stuff, but I guess you won't mind if you're over there. Alright, darling, I'll stop blathering again. I apologize. I'm having trouble hanging up. I can see the skyline off in the distance, and, well, it just makes me aware of just how excited you are about the big city, and how excited you make me. Okay, that's enough. Alright, sorry for the sound quality, sweetheart. I'm flying down the road. I hope all this made it to you. Especially if it's across space and time. Laurel, you're my everything. No matter what universe you're in. Love you, babe. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to Across the Universe, an original improvisational short story by me, Jared I. McGee. All sounds you hear come from freesound.org. The tracks you hear are being used under CC 0, 1.0 Universal Public Domain Dedication licenses. The driving sound effects are my own. Please stick around for the second story this week. Let's move from the multiverse to true time travel. Come on, let's go. Play It Again, an original short story by Jared I. McGee. Baby? Jeff? The man slowed his jogging, backpedaling a few feet after having already entered the gates of the large urban park. He peeked around the trees, still heavy with green leaf despite the October chill. Yeah? I thought we were going around the whole perimeter of the park, not going through, no? Let's do both. Do the inside for our first loop and the outside for our second. That would mean we get in a full 4 miles before we hit home, then brunch. With a rueful smile, the woman relented, and the couple jogged into the sloping verdant oasis in the middle of the city. And me? I just watched the exchange. I had no business acting as voyeur at first glance, but should anyone have actually taken the time to give me a good, hard stare, they would have realized that baby, that Jeff, was me. That was him. Just a bit older. The thing that strikes me the most about being back in what was once my present is how poorly I fit into it. I came back to this particular slice of my present by accident, to be entirely honest. And before you asked, no, I have no clue how to go skipping across the temporal pools of the world. All I know is that amid some trouble and heartbreak, I truly earnestly ask God, gods, and the universe to send me to a time and a place where I might stand some chance at finding love and a life worth the living. I've honestly always been a bit off from my peers in my timeline. From my youngest memories, I remember being a leader, a wallflower, an athlete, a wispy nerd. I've been everything to everyone because I am a chameleon. I am a chameleon because I have to be. I know I'm not normal and that my unadulterated, unfiltered self would preclude me from the waking world. So for as long as I remember, I've taken on the role of whomever I needed to be in that moment, in that space, in those people's lives. Enough of that, and you'll find yourself discombobulated, utterly losing touch with that oddity that was you before you started all the play acting. So it was after that yearning for transport in the wake of my breakup with Ivy, the young woman calling other me baby on that 4-mile run, that I found myself in a heavily wooded glade just southwest of what I previously would have called a dilapidated collection of poorly pieced together wooden planks, the ramshackle buildings on either side of what one might call a street. Though it was nothing more than some dust where the trees and stumps and rocks had been cleared away. It was winter when I, landed. And so what might have taken me some gearing up to be courageous enough to head into this town took no time at all. The freeze of the season already settling into my bones as I began to walk. I can't tell you exactly the when the powers that be sent me to where they sent me, but I do know that it had to have been in some 19th century version of the urban sprawl I was living in when I begged to be lifted somewhere else. The English was right. The clothes seemed to be matched up with what I'd seen in old photographs and history books. The actions and interactions seemed somewhat right. Maybe it was a bit earlier. I was never so great at history. Now, I know how ridiculous this all must sound, but it was what it was. Even more odd than the transport was my quick acceptance of the residents of Taunton, and their lack of questions about everything from my odd accent — there seemed to be a lot of far-flung immigrants present — to my strange clothes. Yep, thanks again, immigrants. To my dazed stupor from trying to get my bearings. That was all me. I'm assuming the kind people around me thought me addled or quirky. I learned that my 21st century skills were less than valuable, but because of my upbringing that hard work is nothing to be shirked, I got on just fine. I started by hauling goods for the general store and the builders in town. From there, it came out that I could read and write pretty well, and before I knew it, I was the town clerk, which included filing marriage licenses, various flotsam and jetsam of the legal profession, ensuring the post was taken care of for the town, and much, much more. In short, I found myself a relatively important man. Far more important than I'd ever been in my own time. The mindless drudgery. That alone made me feel like my prayers to go to another sometime had been well prayed. Then I met Kate. Well, Katerina. She only let her family call her Kate, so I met her as Katerina. Her grandmother on her mother's side had come from Minsk with her mother, her father, a husband in tow by his father-in-law's force of will, and a few other sundry family members. A true American tale, theirs. Our courtship was rather fast compared to the admittedly rocky dating I'd taken part in my own time. Katerina and I were not allowed to be alone for a great deal of the beginning of the process, save when she came into the clerk's office to mail a letter or ask for the ledger on her father's property. Acts that were done with a bit more frequency than was wholly necessary just for that purpose. Family strolls, family dinners, the occasional allowance for the two of us to veer away during a harvest or spring festival. It went on like that for about a year. I think it might have been less than that, though, since I bought Kate's ring after the harvest festival sometime in that late autumn. Anyway, after just about a year then, I had been baited by the universe to do what it was I had been so longing for so very long. I proposed to Kate as the first snows began to dust the glade. There was no pomp, no creative bullshit to water down what needed to be a sincere moment of emotional eloquence. My tears and husky voice mingling with her tears and wavering one. Just Kate, the ring, and me. I had, of course, cleared everything with her father long beforehand. That was terrifying. Though they loved me, I knew that my being a stranger and an outsider with no family or past to speak of was off-putting to most of the town's population. Even so, they embraced me, fully, and I had a family. Family. That was the one thing I missed amid my temporal adventure. To build a life in the past had been rather easy. But as enchanted as that life may well be, it was frail, at best, when comparing it to the richness and vastness of the unending love of my family back home, back in my then. Yes, I'd been able to swing into a new life with ease. Yes, this new life was far better than the one I'd been living that was so devoid of love and emotion for the most part, that was so damn isolated and lonely there in the city. But at the end of the day, even when I was miles from them in my then, my family was still there. My pattern of depression and drudgery was nothing when my family would call or text. Their love kept me grounded no matter how much those metaphorical tempests raged. I knew all this before my proposal to Kate. I still proposed. I still watched the snow gather and endured the howling winds that winter. It's funny the things I took for granted before Kate and I started life together. Before I skipped backward in time. My family was clearly one of them. Easy heating was another. It would have been easier for me to play prince and slay a dragon for my young bride than for me to keep the two of us warm that winter. I'd prepared more than enough wood for our fires for the season. I had worked doing extra odd jobs to get us the finest woolen goods to wear and to bundle up in the evenings. And yet, by the time the first thaws came to Taunton, Kate was pale and burning with fever. Having lost weight she couldn't afford to lose being so petite already, she looked waifish and ill. The glow from her cheeks had gone out. As much as I loved this time in this place, seeing Kate die so needlessly and so quickly cooled my warm emotions for the place. The town folks' attitude toward her illness and death seemed downright callous to me. Even her family accepted her passing with far more willingness and far fewer tears than ever I would have imagined possible. Death was just a way of life, here in this then. I buried Kate under a small thicket of ash trees, their boughs only just beginning to bud leaves. Their skeletal semblance was not what Kate loved about them. She loved what was to come next in the coming months. Their blossoming and relieving, their time of rebirth where they reached for the sky. The ground had only just begun to thaw. So digging her grave there beneath those watchers took longer than I could have imagined it would. I dug until the shovel handle gnawed through my gloves and into my palms. So as I placed her there in the dirt the next day with the whole town watching, I laid her to rest with a piece of me, my blood having fallen down into that cold dark place, mingling with the roots of the ash trees and now mingling with her. As winter finally gave up its hold on the town and spring came into its full strength, I could not find that happiness I once had in the town. I was still the same man that had entered. My life was still, in most ways, markedly better than the one I'd left behind in my then. But with Kate's death, the light of the world had dimmed. My future there in this past seemed dead. A thunderstorm raged roughly a month after the funeral. It was one of those storms that made my house shake, and it seemed to continue shaking things right to my bones. Amid that hurly-burly, I went out into the storm. I let the rain lash at me. I let the winds bully me. I shrugged off the near-constant lightning arcing to and fro across the sky. There in the elemental pureness, I prayed again, trying my best to tap back into that earnesty and desperation I had well over a year ago now. I wanted to go back. I wanted to go to my then. I needed my family to help me heal these wounds. I needed to leave this world without Kate behind and face the reality of my then present without Ivy. In my mind, I was prepared to be alone. I just couldn't do it like this. Prayers flying, I felt rather than heard thunder crack down across me. And I just assumed that was God, the gods, and the universe's answer to me. A resounding no, as it struck me down for my hubris in asking for the laws of reality to be broken a second time in my favor. With that booming negation of my cries for help, I saw white light and assumed that was the end of my rather mediocre time spent on this world, both in my time and in Kate's. I was wrong. I awoke with a start. The air was cool with just a touch of fall in it. The leaves were beginning to change color. I seemed to be on a bus stop bench staring out at a park. As my senses began to clear a bit, I stood and began shambling toward the park, getting my legs under me and beginning to realize where I was. I had no idea when I was, though. I saw a couple come jogging by. The man in the lead, the woman, just a few footfalls behind.
Baby? Jeff?
The man slowed his jogging, backpedaling a few feet after having already entered the gates of the large urban park. He peeked around the trees, still heavy with green leaves despite the October chill. Yeah?
I thought we were going around the whole perimeter of the park, not going through. No?
Let's do both. Do the inside for our first loop and the outside for our second. That would mean we'd get in a full 4 miles before we hit home, then brunch. The same rueful smile flashed across Ivy's face. I noticed that she actually shot forward and pecked then me on my cheek before they loped off into the same sloping verdant oasis in the middle of our shared city. I'd never seen the kiss before. It made my heart scream and my soul ache. God, I had loved her. I could watch this scene on repeat for the rest of eternity and live in this quick moment of unfiltered, unscripted, unexpected affection. But it would whittle me down to nothing but a skeleton living in a past in which I no longer was a featured player. In that moment, Kate's family flashed in my mind. I bet they and the townsfolk wouldn't lose any sleep over my sudden disappearance. So much for mattering in any reality. I was back, but I was back in that then. I didn't know what this meant though. Was this one of those time travel loops where I would live and relive the same set of experiences forever in eternity? Some Groundhog Day scenario? Surely not. I'd aged and moved forward in my own personal time there in Taunton. What could I do? I just watched the happy exchange for a second time in real time. I had no business acting as a voyeur, but this was my life. I thought about casting out with prayer again, but thought better of it. Instead, I decided to take a walk away from the park and out and around the city, considering what all of this meant. If it meant anything at all. Kate, Ivy, my family, me. Felt the weight in my pocket and realized I had a cell phone now. Without thinking twice, I picked it up and began calling my mother. It would be great to hear her voice again. I smiled even as the phone began to ring. I strolled at a leisurely pace, enjoying the faltering October warmth and noting that the thicket of ash trees in the park were only just seeing their leaves change color. Maybe I could live in this moment. But the past certainly seemed to have a way of reminding me of its presence.
Hello?
Hi, Mom. I'm just calling to see what you're up to.
Oh, honey, well, you know, I just was thinking of calling you. Well, so what I was thinking is, you know, if Johnny comes over tomorrow, I think Jane might as well. But now, Sarah Sue, she might be.
Thank you for listening to Play It Again, an original short story by me, Jared I. McGee. All sounds and music you hear come from freesound.org and YouTube's music library. All of it is being used under CC 0.1.0 Universal Public Domain Dedication licenses. That does it for Prose this week. I hope that you will do your best to spread the word about the show. You know, just tell somebody that likes podcasts that maybe you enjoyed this one. And also, as always, remember to love those around you. Tell them that you do and embrace this life as it is, stranger than fiction. See you next time.